to Iverson to the reverse.
All right, here is McGrady.
And he puts it down with a windmill. And back comes Carter. Here's Carter putting down. Vince Carter goes crazy.
The NBA All-Star Game used to be a spectacle. It used to always be one of the highlights of my year, because it was a chance to watch some of the best athletes in the world just do crazy shit and exemplify their superior talent to the rest of the players in the NBA. But in 2019, that's no longer the case. To say the All-Star Game is a shell of its former self is putting it lightly, and you can even make a case that it's as meaningless as the Pro Bowl now. But why is this the case? How did something as entertaining as the All-Star Game turn into such an afterthought? Well, there are a few explanations that you always hear tossed around. One of them is the lack of effort. You know, you always hear this, like the players don't try anymore, they don't want to be there, they'd rather be home resting, like stuff of that nature. And then another common explanation is the imbalance that exists between the East and the West. Now I know last year they did away with East versus West, they do the team captains now, which by the way I'm not a fan of at all because I'm a purist. Give me East versus West all day, I don't care how uneven the teams are, that's just the way it should be. So there's that explanation. But there's one explanation that I've never heard talked about on any sports show, I've never read it in any sports column. And it's really surprising because to me it's such an obvious reason the All-Star Game suffers now. And that reason is super teams. Super teams have killed the NBA All-Star Game. Now before I go into more detail, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not just hating on super teams. In fact, in this video I'm not going to state what my opinion is on super teams. All I'm saying is, in this particular instance, super teams have definitely been bad for the NBA. Now let me explain why. So the last NBA All-Star Game I really enjoyed was in 2010. It was held in Dallas, Texas, and if you'll remember, the main storyline that week was whether or not the Cavs were going to trade J.J. Hickson for Amari Stoudemire. Boy oh boy, the good old days. So that 2010 All-Star Game was the last one I really enjoyed. And that wasn't just for any reason, there was one specific reason. And that reason is the following season the super team era was born. That's of course when LeBron teamed up with D. Wade and Chris Bosh, and then Carmelo Anthony was traded to New York to play with Amari Stoudemire, and the NBA has just never been the same since. Now I know there's going to be some people saying, what about the Celtics in 2007, that's a super team. Or what about Kobe and Shaq, that's a super team. It's not the same thing at all, and I'll explain why in a different video. So what do super teams have to do with the All-Star Game, you might ask? Well, before super teams were a thing, one of the main appeals of the All-Star Game was, it was a chance to watch the best players in the world play on the same team. And that was always a unique and fun experience because it only came around once a year. And unless you were doing a fantasy draft in 2K or something, you never saw anything like it. But when super teams became a thing, it just totally devalued the All-Star Game. And that's because we became totally desensitized to seeing superstars playing together. Like seeing LeBron, D. Wade, and Chris Bosh on the same team just totally ruined the All-Star Game for me. It never was the same. So one example I always use is Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. So pretend for a second that super teams never existed. In the All-Star Game, it would have been cool to see Chris Paul throw an alley-oop to Blake Griffin, because they're two superstars doing something electric. But when they teamed up and created a quote-unquote super team, it just totally devalued anything cool that would have happened in an All-Star Game. So after they teamed up, like, they could still do something cool during the All-Star Game, and I'm sure everybody would be like, yeah! But it's like, oh wait, that happens 82 nights a year during the regular season. So like for me, super teams just totally took the fun out of the All-Star Game. And when you take into account that there are some years where the starting lineup for the All-Star Game has like 2 or 3 players that are on the same team during the regular season, it just gets even more ridiculous. Now I haven't fact-checked that, so I might get grilled in the comment section, but I know for sure there are some years where like Kevin Durant and Steph Curry are in the starting lineup for the All-Star Game. But it's like, we see that 82 nights a year during the regular season, so it's just not as cool as it would have been had super teams not existed. So to wrap things up, there were definitely a number of things that hurt the NBA All-Star Game. It wasn't just super teams. But super teams were definitely the main problem, at least in my opinion. And like I said earlier, I'm just totally amazed that nobody else has talked about this. Like, I've never heard Stephen A. Smith talk about this. I've never heard any of the guys at Inside the NBA talk about this. And it's just really puzzling because to me it's so obvious. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this video. By the way, if you're new to my channel and you're a basketball fan, then definitely go and hit subscribe, because since football season's over, I'm going to be uploading more and more basketball videos. And I've got a long list of video ideas, so I'm looking forward to it. And if you're a football fan, don't worry. I'm still going to be making football videos. It's not like I'm waiting until September or anything crazy like that. In fact, my next video is going to be about a certain Browns quarterback, because I have a lot of rare footage of this certain Browns quarterback. So I got to put a video together or else it's going to bother me. So that's that. But yeah, that's going to do it for me. As always, I thank you for watching, and please subscribe.